speaking to you now, boxing trainer and manager Richie Garner. Rich, last time viewers probably saw you. You were on S4C giving the viewers a piece of your mind. You've had a week to think about it. What's your thoughts on last Friday's two controversial fights involving two of your boxers?
I'm still very upset. Sometimes I've got to pinch myself and think, did that really happen? A lot of people are saying the Dragone result was the worst. I think they were just as bad as each other. Fantastic write-up today in Boxing News, some letters into Boxing News saying how tragic they thought the results were. One thing I will say is this, hats off to Christian Toos. I didn't think Toosey had in him to maintain his work rate for 10 rounds and keep Angelo off him, and he did, and full respect to him for that. He's a flashy boxer, he's got great footwork. I felt the main issue I got with that fight isn't necessarily the scoring. Don't get me wrong, I'm not happy with the scoring. However, what I will say is this. First 5 rounds, Christian was constantly pulling the fighter's head down. Referee spoke to him 8-9 times. If you're speaking to a fighter 8 or 9 times, that should generate into a warning, maybe even a point off. What happened then, second half of the fight, Angelo get inside him, he'd grab. You could tell, I've looked back at the fight, you can tell the arms are coming up underneath, he's pulling him into him. A couple of times the referee really had to pull him apart. Didn't speak to him once about that, not even telling him off. So he's had like 8 telling offs for pulling the head down, no warning, no point. Not even a telling off for all the grabbing. My boy wasn't allowed to work on the inside. A lot of fighters would have been reprimanded for that, referee did nothing. And then ultimately the decision went against us. The fight would have been a lot easier if Angelo was allowed to work on the inside. So the referee prevented us from working. Not only did he prevent us from working, but of course it goes without saying that a lot of people are using the word robbery. Matter for the public. What is it, a robbery? Everyone saw the fight, make up your own minds. Jake Anthony. For me, that was the biggest robbery. A lot of people say it was the biggest robbery. Mixed opinions by the public. A lot of people saying, excuse me, they felt Angelo was the biggest robbery. A lot of people saying they thought Jake was the biggest robbery. A couple of people saying they thought it was a very even fight that could have gone either way. But let me just put this into perspective in relation to boxing scoring, because not a lot of people understand it. Jake dropped his opponent in a second round. Now, in a 10-round fight, that means the maximum points he can score if he has a share or wins the subsequent 9 rounds is 98. The referee gave him 97. Now, are we seriously saying that of the remaining 9 rounds, he had a share of or won 8 of the last 9 rounds? That is incredible scoring. And if the board expect me to stand here and say I'm happy about that, they got another thing coming. They can drag me before them, they can fine me, they can do what they like. We live in a country where freedom of speech, last time I checked, and I am a lawyer, was still something which we were entitled to. And as far as I was concerned, to score 8 of the last 9 rounds for a fighter who was bossed throughout was an absolute travesty. And I've got a 21-year-old kid now who has to pick up the pieces from that and has lost that O on his record, which in my opinion should still be there. But it is what it is. We've got to move on, and it's on to bigger and better things, I hope. I've asked Chris Sanagar for a rematch. Chris has been a little bit evasive. But I would like to think he'll grant us a rematch. We certainly deserve it. I mean, people are saying it. People are shouting from the rooftops.
Well, certainly with the Anthony Morgan Jones fight, I thought that was a close fight, and I can understand how the fight might have been a draw or even 1 point to Morgan Jones. I did score it back. When I was doing the commentary live on the night, I didn't actually score that fight, although Enzo Macronelli sitting next to me did. Although watching back on television, which I know is not the same thing as watching it live on the night from ringside, I did score to Jake Anthony when I watched it on TV. I think it was by a point or 2 points, but I can understand from a TV point of view why some people might have thought Morgan Jones could have won the fight. Let
me just tell you why the result was the biggest slap in the face of all for me. A couple of weeks before, and I said this in S4C, a couple of weeks before, the referee's Martin Williams. Martin Williams approaches me prior to this fight, and not a lot of people know this, public might not know this, and I'm always happy to educate the public if they're not boxing insiders. Before a fight, you have pre-fight refereeing instructions. Referee approached us. Craig Woodruff fought a couple of weeks before. He's a back foot fighter, he's a classy boxer, great footwork, great movement. He fought Ciaran Gibbons. Gibbons pressed the fight. Woodruff was on the back foot, scoring points on the outside. Martin Williams said specifically, and as witnesses, there were 4 or 5 people present, and he specifically said to me, I've scored Richie's fights before. Richie will know I score for fighters bringing the pressure, fighters who work on the inside, fighters who are coming forward. Those are his exact words. Jake Anthony brought the pressure all night. He took the decision away from me when I had a fight of boxing on the back foot, and he took the decision away from me when I had a fight of fighting on the front foot. What have my guys got to do to win? Is it me? Is it me? Maybe it's me. But for me, if you tell somebody you're going to score big for a boxer boxing in a certain way, and then they conform to that, you should win that fight. And that was the biggest slap in the face.
So, are you implying that there is some conspiracy against you? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I've just told you the facts. Let a jury decide.
Obviously not happy with the decision, which is clear to see. Most people felt the 2 fights should have gone the other way, although the Morgan Jones, Jake Anthony fight, I was talking to Anthony Trow half hour ago, and he felt Morgan Jones won that fight. And I got a lot of respect for Anthony, ex-professional boxer himself.
Yes.
What can you do as a manager and a trainer? Is it an avenue for you to go down to protest the decisions?
Only thing I can do is ask for an immediate rematch. I've already sent the board a formal letter of complaint. I've said I'll follow it up with perhaps a more detailed letter of complaint and asking for an immediate rematch. Chris Sanagar knows I want an immediate rematch for the boys. I think that's as far as I can take it. We all know that the board don't like you criticising referees, criticising the scoring. It is what it is. Those are the avenues I've got to go down. And I've already taken those steps. I just feel sorry for the boys, and we see this over and over with boxing. But I'll say this. I'm involved in the small hall show promotions like tonight, and I work closely with Mo Pryor. I manage the shows, he runs them, he's the promoter. And if we want to develop talent in Wales, it's got to start at small local area shows. There were fight fans leaving the arena after that show saying that they would never come to a Welsh show after what they witnessed the other night. And I'm not exaggerating. I had about 10, 15 guys saying, after what I've seen tonight, I'm never coming to watch one of these shows ever again. Decisions like we saw the other night, like it or not, whether the board like to hear it or not, they are turning away people from small hall shows, and it's the lifeblood of boxing, and we're turning them away with decisions like that. There's got to come a point when the board have got to make a conscious decision. We've got to stop these hometown decisions from happening. We were the away fighter. We lost both the fights. Ridiculous.
So do you think it's a lack of training from Welsh referees, or is the problem lack of experience? I know Welsh referees, they don't get to referee as many fights as perhaps guys in the London area or Manchester, Liverpool. There's not as many shows on as well. Is that the problem?
We've got 2 experienced referees in there. Rhys Carter, I've got a lot of respect for. Martin Williams, perhaps I'm a little bit angrier with right now. And you can understand why, based upon the instructions that he gave me in conjunction with the way that he scored the fight. Nevertheless, he's an experienced referee. I cannot take that away from him. He's got a ton of experience. The biggest problem here is you got 2 fighters there, and the 2's fighting in a Dragone fight was a very difficult fight to referee, pulling the fighters apart, constantly separating them. There were cuts, there was this, there was that, there was the other. Very difficult to referee, and it's been brought up in Boxing News this month. It's been brought up on a number of occasions before, and people are saying to me, there is no way one referee should be scoring those fights. It should be 3 referees. And I know very well how much it costs to bring referees in, because we know I've been involved in promotions. I know what the referees get paid. But I'll tell you something now. If it means an extra 400-500 quid to bring in extra referees, even if they're from away and you have to pay a few expenses to get a fair decision, as somebody who's involved in promotions, I'm prepared to pay that. Jesus. I think if you win the belt, the promoter should pay for the belt. If you got a belt on the line, and you've got a fighter fighting for it, a lot of people won't know this. This is something else that the public should be aware of. You've got to pay for the belt that you've just won, and it's not cheap. When I was running this show with Mo, the belt was paid for by the promoter, and I believe that if you fight on a title fight show and you win that fight, the promoter benefits from you fighting for a title fight in his show. You should pay for that. There's a lot of things that I believe should happen in boxing. Are they going to happen? I very much doubt it. We're in a very archaic system, which is run with dogma and rules and outdated systems, and it's never going to change. Boxing is what it is, and that's what gives us a little bit of excitement at the end of the day. But do I think there has to be changes? Yes, and they should start with 3 referees crikey, maybe even 2, but certainly not the referee being one of them in championship fights. It's just not right. It's too much for the referee to do. And perhaps that's why the boys suffered the other night. Maybe they did. But we're all aware of the home time bias that affects fighters. I just never thought that it would be taken into consideration on a televised show on S4C with, tens of thousands, I don't know, maybe even hundreds of thousands of the Welsh public watching. Those are high-profile fights. I mean, in a packed arena. And, when Dragone walked out of that ring, you tell me, what was the only thing you could hear?
Well, I was on the commentary, so I could hear Enzo talking in my ear. Or actually, it wasn't. I could hear the angry fan shouting at Enzo in my ear, which is a separate story.
Wasn't alone. I mean, Angelo left the ring, and they all left the ring to boo him. And to be honest with you, I'm not a massive fan of that. Christian Tews worked hard for that fight. He excelled. He was better than I thought he would be. Is he a worthy champion? Yes, I genuinely think it is. I think he is. He's a lovely lad. I like his style myself. I mean, he boxes like I used to, except, like 50 times better. But, he's...
I presume in different weight divisions, or Rich?
Well, I was a mere 13 stone when I was fighting. I'm a lot bigger now. I wish I wasn't, but I like his style and what have you. He's a lovely lad. I'm glad he's got the belt in a way, but. I feel sorry for him. The public shouldn't be booing him. It's not his fault. He hasn't made the decision. The referee's made the decision. People were shouting at Morgan Jones, and I felt terrible for him. They were shouting, you shouldn't have that belt and stuff like that. That was awful, and I don't condone that whatsoever. 2 fighters in there giving it their all in what was essentially, fights which could have been marked as close, depending upon what you were looking for. And to shout at the fighters, things like that, I'm not a big fan of that. But the public voice could be heard, and it was more than clear that people weren't happy with that. And 50% of the arena walked out after after Angelo Dragone dropped that decision. And a lot of those fighters, they're fight fans. A lot of the members of the public, they're fight fans. They were going to stay on to watch Jake Anthony, but a lot of them were saying, "I'm not staying. I'm disgusted. I'm not staying." They wouldn't watch the rest of the show.
So, with that in mind, how does Welsh boxing, I suppose British boxing, move forward? Did you put a recommendation to the board? Obviously, I'm guessing people on the board will watch this interview. Where does it move forward to hopefully prevent this type of thing happening again?
There are some really good people on the board, and I know that there are certain people who criticise the board. There are some really good progressive people on the board trying to move things forward. My suggestion would be, of course, to have 3 judges, even if it's only two judges sat ringside, but certainly not the referee. That would be my recommendation to the board. I've made recommendations to the board previously. One of the recommendations I made, and people won't really understand this because people talk about alphabet organisations and the misunderstanding of what titles mean and stuff like that. But one of the recommendations that I made was for the British Masters belt to come back. The board didn't like it. They said, well, people get confused with the British title and the British Masters title. Well, name it something different. But that title was a stepping stone, which would allow fighters of a certain level who are Welsh, Irish, Scottish to fight English fighters of a certain level and contest a title. You've got the Celtic title, you've got the Welsh title, you've got the English area title. But, for fighters between 0 and 8 fights, when you're building a career, you kind of get to that 6, 7, 8 fight career. If you want to fight an English lad, you can't fight for a title. So that title was ideal. I made that recommendation to the board. I don't think it was taken seriously for a second. In the letter I wrote to the board, I said I'm a board member. Shouldn't I be treated as a manager, as a trainer, as somebody who pays their fees as a board member? Shouldn't I be treated as well as the referees? Shouldn't my opinions be treated as well as the referees? Shouldn't I be treated as well? Because, I'm not just here to be ruled. I'm not just here to be told what to do. I'm here to be treated as a member and for my opinion to be valued. And do I think it's valued? Not 100% sure. You'll have to ask certain members of the board that.
Okay, well, thank you, Rich, for giving me your time this evening. And I know you got Craig Woodruff boxing later on this evening.
Looking forward to it. A little bit disappointed not to see my good friend Nathan Thorley on the show. Unfortunately, his opponent didn't get his bloods in time, and he wasn't accepted as an opponent by the board. A little bit too late to get him an opponent. He's a really dangerous fighter. He's on the cusp of something big. I'm devastated he's not there. I see him in the gym working hard all the time, and I really think he's one for the future. So a bit disappointed not to see Thorley out tonight, but maybe in the future. I've heard that there might be something in the next week or two for him. I understand that maybe Robinson is off as well. I'm not sure if you know. Yeah, Robinson's off as well. But nevertheless, there's a plethora of talent here. Craig Woodruff, just coming off a Welsh title loss, disputed in my opinion to Ciaran Gibbons. You know, he's back out tonight. We're going to build him up again. You know, I mean, I'm in the interest of building Welsh boxers' careers. That's why I got into this. You know, I'm not making money from boxing, I'm losing money from boxing. But you know what? If I can build fighters' careers to the point where I got Jake Anthony and particularly Angelo Dragone, everybody talked about that being his world title. You know, I actually think Angelo can go on a lot further than that because he's more talented than he realises. But he fought his heart out that night. He gave the crowd something to relish. He'll go away with memories which he'll never forget. When he was walking towards the ring, I spoke to him. I was in his ear. I was telling him, soak it all up. You know, take it all in. These are memories you'll never ever forget, win or lose. And you know, that's what it's all about. It's all about creating memories. And any fighter that comes to me, I can guarantee you, you know, I'm not going to push you onto the road. I'm not going to take tons of money off you. You know, I'm going to try to push you to this stage in your career. And there's a lot of good people around me. I know Gary Lockett has got the same ethos. I know that Gavin Rees has got the same ethos. You know, there are some really good people around me, and there's some really good people in Welsh boxing. Tonight is going to be a great night. Woodruff is fighting a very tough Nicaraguan. He's going to go out there, he's going to do his thing, dance around him, flick the jab out, throw a few right hands in. We've been working the body up a little bit. Some of these Nicaraguans can be a bit softer in the body, and fingers crossed we'll be able to get a stoppage tonight. You never know. You know, but we put these shows on with promoters making a massive loss to push Welsh boxing forward, and fingers crossed the British the Welsh public will come out and support us, not just in this show but in other shows. I know there was a lot of disappointment in relation to Angelo's fight and Jake's fight, but you know, we'll be back and we're looking after these boys, and we're trying to push them towards a position where they can get picked up by Matchroom, Frank Warren, you know, all those, you know, next tier promoters who can look after them. And you know, we want to see them in big fights. We want to see them in good money.
Okay, cheers Rich, and good luck for tonight, mate, and perhaps have a briefer chat after the fight.